Hello and welcome to the A-Form Show. My name is Alan George.
And my name is Tisha Rao.
Each week, we sit across from thought leaders and change makers in the architecture and design space of the GCC.
We dive deep into their professional and personal experiences to find out what makes them really tick.
Our goal is to add value to your day and make you all much better architects and designers overall.
Finally, the views and opinions of the guests do not necessarily represent the A-Form Show.
Good morning. Welcome to the show, everyone. Today, we are joined by not one, not two, but three guests. I don't think that has ever happened on this show before. So we're really obviously excited about this particular one. Today, we are joined by Fatima Al Zaabi, Noora Al Awar, and Afnan Saeed. They are the founding partners of Studio D04. They are bonded over the same vision and passion for architecture and design, as all of us on this show are. Fatima's specialty lies in exploring advanced digital fabrication methods. Noora's work focuses on exploring material processes with influences of traditional concepts derived from her surroundings. Afnan is eager to push the boundaries of architecture and design by exploring new details and aesthetics. Together, this dynamic trio has led a range of diverse projects in the UAE that leverage indigenous Arab and Emirati design elements. Their designs can be easily described as unique, modern, progressive, contemporary, with a sensitivity to local and living community needs. As three female Emirati architects, they are paving the way for young, homegrown, female-owned practices. We are super excited to have Fatima, Noora, and Afnan on the show today. So without further ado, let's get into it. Good morning, all three of you.
Hi. Good morning. Hi.
Well, this is exciting. I'm not going to lie, I'm a little intimidated.
Oh, really?
So let's start off with the most obvious one, right? Normally, a founder by him or herself is the normal way of starting up a practice. So you have, the kind of one vision designer kind of person that leads the entire team. In your case, I kind of want to know how maybe Studio D04 came into being. How did it kind of become what it is? How did you find each other? What's kind of your background?
I think Zaabi should start.
Okay. So Studio D04 actually started in 2014. Me and Noora actually know each other from university. We studied together and it was like our dream to start like our own practice, our own design. And we felt that we are more interested in detailing and certain ideas that we haven't seen in Dubai or in the UAE or in the region.
Right.
So we were joined by this passion. We first started in a competition with Dubai Culture. I think it was the first edition of the urban seating.
Oh, yeah.
For D3. It was for design days. And then we actually were runner-ups. So it was just competition that we did on our free time. And then they were very impressed by the proposal that we submitted, that they actually gave us the opportunity to start our first project, which is the exhibition for their booth for design days. And from there, we kind of saw that, okay, there is a potential that we actually should start the business. From there, we actually came together and started our own practice. And we started doing exhibitions, product design, and then it took off to renovations. And then we built up to architecture and interior design. In 2019, we've known Afnan as one of our freelance designers, and we built a relationship and we realized as a team together, we have the same design aesthetics. We like to work as a collaborative team rather than individual, which is very essential to our studio. And she has been part of the team since 2019, and now she's a founding partner with us. So I would say that's what Studio D04 is about.
Awesome. Okay. So I must say that sounds like a very organic and maybe the right way that practices should start rather than kind of, just appear out of nowhere. I think that makes a lot of sense.
I think we believe in that a lot, like building slowly and organically. So we don't want to sacrifice our design and our beliefs.
Right.
I think what was interesting also about like when we did the competition, our idea and concept was very like how to translate traditional things into contemporary work. So we were very like, it was really nice to see that they were interested in our way of thinking and someone supported our vision back then.
Right.
That's what made us like committed to, we need to like serve our purpose and continue that.
Right.
For me, I remember I was being supportive as a friend because I was their friend first, actually Noora's friend. And then I got to know Fatima Al Zaabi during their exhibitions and what they did. And I would just go for support. I even had a design background and I studied architecture and everything, but I never thought I would join until I did a freelance for them. They wanted other freelancers to join them.
Right.
And with working with them, it was very natural, very organic. You always have this reservation when you work with a friend that it would ruin the friendship, but it made our friendship stronger. And then through that, I got to know Fatima on a deeper level also when we went to Milan International Design, Exhibition.
Yeah.
And from there, I was like, I want to join. Like, this is really good. We have the same design aesthetic. We work really well together. And I think I can bring something to you guys. And we actually did go slow. We went through a trial phase. Like, if it works or not, we're not going to force it. And then, alhamdulillah, it worked.
Awesome.
I think we really believe as a collaborative team. I mean, in the practice here, if you see any architecture practice, it's always one person's vision.
Yeah.
That's what I think is in the market right now, that every practice has one person leading the design. With our studio, we actually don't like that. We like to be a collaborative team. We sit down and share ideas. We critique each other's work. There's not one person that's leading a project it's their design, it's the team's design.
Awesome.
So that's what speaks about.
You get a lot of pass the parcel with the project, like concepts, drafting, and detailing with other people.
Right.
So you get it's more like instead of getting like one take on the detailing, you get like 3 revisions. So we believe that makes it stronger.
Well, I mean, of course, from a design point of view, yes, but from QA, QC, that's awesome. I mean, nothing's going to slip through, right? If you have like 3 people kind of reviewing it. Awesome. Now, for anyone who's seen your work, I'm pretty sure a lot of the listeners tuning in have. And if you haven't, you definitely should. It's work which is obviously contemporary to start off with, no doubt. But also, like you said, something which shows a lot of attention to detail. Now, my question to you is, detailing is something which is not very glamorous. It's something which a lot of designers maybe don't think about. They kind of want to work on, the big hospitality projects or, an airport or something like that. Detailing seems to be something which does not excite a lot of people. So I kind of want to know from the 3 of you, how did that interest come up when it comes to detailing? Was it something which you guys all were interested in, or it just kind of, again, grew organically?
I believe design is in the details, actually. When you design something in 3D, it's completely a different experience, a different way of working. But seeing it built in real life requires a lot of detailing and paying attention to these details. And I would say per se that it was a built process. It wasn't something that we were instantly interested in, that we thought, okay, our project has to be detailed and all of that. It was an interesting thing that we grew through the process of our work. So as graduates, at the beginning, we only knew how to make conceptual design. We didn't know how to bring them to life into an actual construction. And so from that process of seeing a design that we made by ourselves in 3D to come to life in detailing, that's where our interest actually grew. So it's paying attention to these small details that actually bring the aesthetic of the design, that actually bring the design to life. So I would say design is in the detail.
And I think it's a lot like, how do you convince the client that to make these details? We started telling them to go to places, and sometimes you enter places and you don't know why you like them. You're like, oh, it's simple, but then you notice all the details, and that's what makes the design. So once we make them notice that, we convince them to add it. Let's not kid ourselves that there's a cost to them. You have to add these details that make the design work better. So we try to share our vision with the client as well to convince them to do them.
Okay.
For me, the exciting part about detailing is you have to think how a material or a sample meets the other material, how wood meets concrete.
Right.
What's the detail that goes there, or how functionality can be detailed, how you open a cabinet. It's not just like a knob, how the detail is there. And then when there is that design detail, everyone notices that.
Right.
And that gives the whole overall render another soul in reality. So when you see all these details come to life, the render is just on paper, and then the reality is so much better than that. Sometimes you see a render and it's magnificent with the lighting and the details and the shadows, when in real life it doesn't have that soul. So the soul there is in the detail.
Right. Again, that's something which I wanted to kind of tell you guys, that as someone who's in the field, till then has done quite a few renders in his time. I think that the renders that you guys do is probably one of the most not photorealistic, but actually realistic renders that I've seen, because many times I find myself when I'm scrolling through, your feed, I'm like, is that a render? Is that real? Is that a render? Is that real? And for me to be asking that question, I think that's definitely, a really good thing, because that shows that you're not kind of looking for, that, like you said, the perfect lighting and the perfect sky and all of that stuff. So
that's
pretty
actually
cool.
really nice to hear, because we always want to avoid that. I don't know what to call, like a render gap, to reality gap, because you always get clients who are like, oh, I'm sure it won't look like the render. Oh, we got another designer that did this in real life and it looks nothing like the render. But then we tell them, we're not giving you just a render. What we make sure is like there's a set of like 20, 30 drawings for like one room with all the details that make, like, we're not just giving you a picture. We're giving you how to make the picture in real life.
Right.
Even the process of that, once we do the render, we actually do the detailed design first ourselves, and then another draftsman, and then we review that, and then the joinery team does their own drawing, and then we review that. It's all of the process of getting the detail right, and even up to construction, some details are not done right, and we do mock-ups, and then we fix that. So we have to make sure that the render is not the nice thing in the project. It's actually the built project.
Right. Again, as someone who's seen your work, very evident that's exactly what you're doing. I kind of then maybe want to take a slightly larger scale, a larger kind of overview to your studio. So contemporary, regional, contextual architecture is kind of like these new buzzwords which everyone's throwing around, saying that, this is what, we're trying to do and so on. As Emiratis, this is your country, quite literally. And since you've pretty much seen how this place has grown, in your minds, what really is contemporary regional architecture to you, for you as designers?
So I think regional contemporary architecture is different for each person. They have their own definition of what it is. Our studio views contemporary regional architecture as a contextual response to the environment and the country that you live in. So it's more about responding to the materials that you have available in the country, the weather in this area, and also the culture and the traditions of this area, the lifestyle that people actually have when you are designing for them. You have to understand their backgrounds. You have to understand their lifestyle. How do they walk into a space? What do they expect from a space? Privacy versus public, to open, to closed. So that's what we think regional architecture is. It's something that's responding to the context of where you are building. Especially here in the UAE, our weather is very harsh in terms of heat and the materials that we have available. And we have a range of, I would say, landscape. You have the areas where you have mountains, and then you have the areas where it's just in the desert, and then you have an area where it's in the beach or you see a waterfront. So how to respond to each area in terms of environment, in terms of material, in terms of cultural aspect. So I think that's the best interpretation of regional architecture for us.
Right. Okay. Is that the same for the both of you as well?
I think that's what made us join. Like, we have the same vision, and like what is traditional today isn't what was traditional 50 years back. And it's not what's traditional 50 years front. So like, I feel like whatever we're doing now redefines what in the future will be traditional Emirati architecture or interior design or design in general.
Right.
It's site specific. It's rooting the design in the environment that it's built in.
Right.
It's using materials that can respond to the area that you're building in. So one of the best examples, like what we inspire to be, or people that we look up to, like Rick Joy and Wendell Burnett or Marwan Essais, they have this aesthetic of looking into the environment and where their site is and how to respond to it specifically and making it rooted in that environment. One of their actual projects is in the middle of the desert with a mountain background. They've used like ramped earth and stones, and they made sure that the project had certain views of the mountains and certain enclosures of the space to make sure it responds to that area. You can't take that project anywhere and put it in a different country. It's only site specific. It's rooted in that area.
Right. Makes sense. That's kind of like the approach which we all learn in architecture school, right?
Yeah.
Like we're all taught that that's what we should be doing the very beginning, but somehow down the line that kind of gets lost in translation. Yeah, so that's very cool. Awesome. Another question I had was kind of, again, project related. This is maybe for the listeners, this might become a bit too boring, but I'm going to ask because I'm genuinely curious. Finding contractors to do contemporary work is quite difficult. And for the audience who couldn't tell, every one of us just smiled because we all know it's true. Finding contractors to do good contemporary work is quite difficult. It's not easy.
Prices.
It's not easy. So, of course, I'm sure you must have gone through a set of bad ones and then found a few good ones. And now you work with a few good ones and probably still looking out for even better ones. I kind of want to understand from your point of view, when it comes to your drawing packages and your overall design, where do you kind of see contractors facing friction? What is their kind of like major pain point when it comes to doing projects like these?
What we make sure when we choose our contractors is we visit similar projects they've done. And even with that, and once we tried them, we noticed that, okay, we make sure all the details are in the drawings for sure.
Right.
But not everyone reads them the same.
True. They're always open to interpretation.
Exactly. Okay, maybe the engineer in the office of the contractor knows how to read them, but the worker doesn't. So actually most of the detailing and the work happens on site.
Right.
Like you get the materials and you're like, no, cut it till here. And then you sketch on the wall. And like, this is where most of the work happens. It's not on paper. Like we still make sure there's like more than like half the package is the detailed drawings as references to us for the team. And so make sure like it's there. We told you it's there.
Right.
And then again, we have to like walk them through it because they're not as experienced in the details we want.
Right.
So I think Afnan wanted to talk about the point that like when you choose one contractor and you like roll with them because they know what you want. But you don't always get to choose the people you work with. Sometimes the client has a preference.
Or a budget.
Or a budget. Yes.
I find that also working with some contractors that are not able to read the details that we want, but sometimes we can have the patience to teach them. We put enough time to go on site and tell them, no, this is not the way we want it. It's the other way. And sometimes we find that actually there are contractors that are willing to learn. And that's interesting to me that you built that relationship. So in time, you don't have to communicate certain details. They just know. But it's always best to work with someone who already has the experience, that already knows and can better our work with their knowledge as well, not just our knowledge on someone else.
Right.
It's always this play with relationships. You either are the dominant one, but sometimes I feel like when it's collaborative, like the contractor does have the knowledge and we learn from them as well as they learn from us. That's always the best case scenario.
Right.
That's hard to find.
Easier said than done.
Yeah,
exactly.
For sure.
That's maybe 1 in like 10 contractors.
Yeah. I think one of the interesting challenges was finding contractors who are actually interested in our work. So when we have bids, we actually have contractors who are willing to take these projects and willing to take the challenge of coming up with these details. So we as a team, when we start to evaluate contractors or evaluate tenders or bids, we make sure that the other person who is going to join us is not someone who just wants a work or a job or is just looking for the money, but is actually interested in making the design that we did.
Right.
So we found in some of our projects, like recently, one of the residential projects we're working in, the contractor who bid for it actually is interested. He wants to do these details. He wants to build his reputation on this type of design. So it's interesting to find people who are actually interested in detailing and in contemporary modern design.
Right.
So I think that's a nice kind of relationship that you find with the contractors who are willing to work with you.
Okay. What about clients, right? I mean, when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, they technically are a decision maker, although I'm pretty sure all designers think that we are the only decision makers, but the reality is that they do have a say in it also. So I know that we touched upon how, there's an actual cost to detailing, but when it comes to, just the overall approach to contemporary design, I'm sure you've had clients who come to you and say, we don't want contemporary, but we want another kind of design aesthetic. As a studio, how do you approach a client like that? Let me rephrase. Do you turn down a client like that?
We try to convince them with contemporary traditional design because a lot of people they like the contemporary French style. We noticed like the clients, a lot of them come with the same pictures and references. So I don't know if there's a project we have that we did, the AB Villa.
Yes.
It's still contemporary and true to our aesthetics, but it still has elements from that field. So we try, all our projects are client influenced for sure. So we try to respond to what they like, but not sacrificing our aesthetics as well. So somewhere in between, I would say.
And our first meeting with the clients, we make sure that we sit down with them. We talk about their lifestyle. What do they expect when they walk into a space? It's more about the experience rather than, oh, I just like this type of architecture or I just want a house like that. No, actually sit down and tell them, what do you want to see when you walk into a space? Do you want something cold or cozy? Is it something that's very naturally lit or is it dark and moody? So at the beginning of our meetings, when we try to understand our clients, we actually sit with them and try to understand their requirements before we can tell them. And even when they send us pictures, they're all expecting that these pictures are going to be Mediterranean or like LA type of houses. Most of our clients come to us with these kind of references,
right?
But we actually try to educate them about our style. And when there's someone who's so adamant about having it, like I would say the cookie cutter type of housing, those are the clients we tend to not work with, I would say. But we try our best to educate them, whether they end up working with us or signing with us, or they end up saying no. So
yeah, it's the first thing we tell them is that we are brutally honest, which might be not to our advantage with a lot of clients, but then you get some that appreciate it and sign with you because of it.
Right.
Because we are very, like, even with like once they come with us and they tell us they want so and so area housing with so and so budget, we get like, we are like the like, how do you say it? Like,
I think when they come to us with a specific budget and a specific design, we try to educate them about how much that costs and what is the actual market price for it. And then we try to educate them. It's more of an educational process. We don't tell them it's not possible. It is possible. Everything is possible. But for this much of area with this much of design and detailing, this would cost you this much.
Right.
But when it comes to certain like style of aesthetic or whatever, we tell them this is the cost. Because I think there's a misunderstanding or misconception of architecture. They see their family, like their parents or their grandparents, how much their houses are huge and they have like marble and like these huge chandeliers. But that was in the past, where the price of construction is pretty much different. We live in a different world right now. The price is different. The market is different. So trying to educate them that what used to happen in the past, these huge areas, the houses that are huge, the bedrooms are like 5 bedrooms that have like 5 to 6 meter, like big or whatever, that it's not the same now. It's different. And we try to explain to them, marble has its price. This material has its price. It's more of a conversation, I would say, an educational conversation with the clients.
We also have clients that come to us sometimes and they say, the house that you did in whatever area, I want the same one. And we also explain to them, as Fatima said, that how we start the conversation by asking them about their lifestyle, what they want to do on day-to-day basis, how their life goes. So we design for them specifically. So that's what we tell our clients, that our designs is specific to you, even though the style is what you want, similar to that project. But actually the way it is, the way the flow of the spaces, the functionality, the materials, everything is specific to you and your lifestyle. So it's yours and yours only.
Right.
So it's not only site specific, it's also client specific.
Right. Which makes it all the more better, in my opinion. So, sorry, I'm taking a minute here because I'm kind of like processing myself, because as an architect that does similar sort of contemporary residential work, this is kind of like, the exact same, pain points and even the kind of process that we have, that we work with. So much so that I know there's a couple of interior firms here that even have, apart from the designer meeting the client, of course, once they sign on, there's even other kind of external consultants that come on board to meet your client. For example, there's a psychologist that meets.
We always say we're almost marriage counsel sometimes.
Exactly. So
financial counsels, marriage counsels.
Exactly. So there's a group of specialists that also then come on board to meet these clients, to again manage expectations and tell them this is what it is, this is what it's not. And I think the more transparent you are, the better it is. Like you said, that may shoot you in the foot when it comes from time to time, but it's always better to do it that way. Again, as someone who's followed your work for a while, I know that architecture and interior is not only what you guys do. And I say that because a close friend of mine, actually the very first time I heard about you guys was a close friend of mine had a Medkhan.
Yeah.
What was that?
I'm not going to say who, but in all honesty, I didn't even know what it was to begin with. Right. But the minute I saw it, I thought, that this looks very interesting as to how this little wooden cubes like floating in the middle of nowhere. And it just looked like something which was very well constructed, a lot of thought put into it. And that's how I then found out about Studio D04. So my question, I guess, is product design is again something which a lot of firms don't necessarily do just because it may not be financially beneficial for them. There's just way too many hours that go into something which you can't get a cost out of. And again, we're all smiling. So just for the audience to know, that is the reality of it, unfortunately. So maybe from y'all, since you guys have actually done a range of products, I would imagine, what have you learned from that process? What can other designers also learn from that?
I love how everyone's looking at me.
Who's our main product designer?
Product design is a completely, I would say, separate field than architecture and interior. And a lot of the people expect the same workflow for product design to follow interior or architecture, whereas product design is very specific to solving an issue or problem. So you have to define the problem that you want to solve. And then there's the question of aesthetics and how you bring it into the design, because products is all about visuals as well. And so for example, the madkhan that you talked about, our main issue was with it is we are sick of seeing the same repetitive clay madkhan in every house, even though it's considered to be such an essential hospitality item.
Right.
So we didn't want to create something that looks ugly and you hide it in the kitchen or whatever cabinet, and then only when the guests arrive that you put it or use it. Wanted something that can be displayed in your majlis, in your living room, and then at the same time can be functional. So we've noticed, like when we studied the madkhan, the handles where you have them so you don't burn yourself when you carry it. Another interesting thing about how to lay your clothes or like garments on the madkhan without burning them. So the skeletal, the metal element that's encasing the incense burner, the madkhan itself, actually has like a cage that you can lay your garments without the risk of having it catch on fire.
Right.
And we made like a compartment that you can take out and throw in the trash and clean it after you're done with using it. So that's another function. It has a small storage compartment for your special oud, so you don't have to look for it and have different containers laying around the house when you have your guests coming over. So that was like the thought process. But the madkhan actually took us, 3-4 years.
And this is like edition number 3 already. And I'm still thinking of edition number 4 because you keep getting new feedback and then you want to fix one thing and then you want to fix another thing. So this is not how it was like the last one. And I think we only have 10 left from this batch. So I don't know if we're going to...
4 is left. 4,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then she knows it all.
Yeah.
So like you learn from every prototype. So as she said, it's not the same as architecture that you figure it out in the drawing and the 3D model. This one, lots of mock-ups, lots of warehouse visits, lots of material studies, lots of material explorations. It's like a whole other...
It's lots of errors as well.
Yeah.
And fixing that and then finding new errors from the old ones.
Right.
It's good that you mentioned about the cost of it. So because we spent a lot of time on R&D for the madkhan itself, the product, and it took us so many years, the expectation from a client to come to us and expect a 3 months or like a 6 months product is insanely not possible. Feasible, not possible. The concept of having different prototypes is also kind of something that's not feasible to them.
Right.
And then the other challenge is actually finding people who can do product design in the UAE. Someone who has a great attention to details without costing you a fortune. Finding suppliers or factories outside of the country to be able to match the pricing or the targeted pricing or the targeted market for it. So that's a challenging thing when it comes to such a designed object that you want to create. And what do you sacrifice? Is it the price? Is it the quality? You have to go through this different kind of aspects of product design. The madkhan was one of the experiences that had a long-term kind of development in the studio.
Right.
But one of the product design projects that I worked on, it was a collaboration with Earthy, and it was a design dialogue where we worked with designers from abroad and we collaborate on our crafts. So the project that I worked in was a collaboration between clay manufacturing and pottery in the UAE. And my partner was an Italian designer who is main focus was working with glass. And how can we bring the two crafts together and creating these functional products into the market. And a lot of research and development. It took us about a year to develop these products, and through a lot of trial and error. And especially here in the UAE, it was difficult to find a skilled professional who is able to produce your pottery pieces. Because as a designer, I'm not going to go and become a professional pottery maker. I have a background in pottery. I took classes. I educated myself on it. I know the different techniques, but I'll never have the skill to be so professional in it. It takes years of developing it. So finding
you
those
have to
people,
respect that everyone has their field and give them to it. Yeah.
So even the Italian designer, my partner, did not go into the factory, and to them it's a generational skill. Exactly. Like his grandparents were like a glass blowers and so on. So he only worked with people who were practiced it for years and years and honed their skill in it. So this is a different kind of also field that you have to go into it.
And then it's not just that, it's with the clay, because she's specialized in robotics. Convince a clay maker here that you are like digitally like programming the design. And
so even like moving from a computational design into a physical design was a challenge. And because you have to have the idea that, okay, the material is not going to act exactly like you designed it on the computer. It has its own way of coming to life.
Right.
So you have to have in mind how much there can be tolerance. Tolerance with different materials is different in glass than in clay.
Right.
And glasses can be more controlled than in clay. Clay is very soft material that you have to form, but you can't really control the shrinkage, for example.
Right.
So these questions come to mind, and it's a long process and it's a very intensive process. Like we did the collaboration, it was launched in a London Design Fair, and it's been like going on, and like it was displayed in Dubai Design Week, and it was very interesting to hear the people response to it as well. And now we're developing like another set of like cups and like hospitality items through the same process, but without the glass, more of just focusing on the pottery.
Right.
So that itself is, I'd say, like a different field, and it has its own challenges. It has its own understanding of material research, I would say.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Again, since there's the three of you, normally if there'd be one founder, I'd ask the one question directly. But since there's three of you, yes, it is one thing to be a designer. Absolutely. I'm pretty sure all three of you are really, really good designers. But there's also a kind of aspect to running a practice, running a business, the financials of it and all of that stuff. So how is that kind of split between the three of you? Who does what?
It's kind of not split. It's just one person for this.
Like Fatima Al Zaabi's name is managing director for a reason.
Right.
I'm the creative director and Afnan is the lead architect. So she does most of the admin, boring work.
She's our IT, she's our finance, she's our everything.
It's a lot of a huge responsibility of someone that does not have a business background. Yeah.
I would not think you should feel very alone. A lot of architects that run practices don't have business backgrounds either.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So it took us years to put like our foot down and ask proper help.
Yeah.
So I think we did that at a good time, and now we're
right.
Yeah, as Noora said, I think starting a practice with only architects and no other backgrounds is hard, and we always have to reach for other disciplines to help us.
Right.
You can't do your finances. You can't do the law,
legal side,
the financing. We can't pretend that we can do everything ourselves.
I don't understand numbers, so I have to work with someone who understands it and explains it to me. I don't understand how coding a website is. I reach out to people who can do it and educate me, and we start the process of creating our website and so on. And it's just managing these expectations. But as a team, we set our goals for the years. We set what we want. We look back at projects and what we did wrong and how can we fix them. So it's a back and forth discussion. It's a learning curve for all of us. But when it comes to responsibilities, it's divided between all of us. One person would carry this kind of work, and then the other person would carry, for example, Noora handles all our clients in terms of talking to them and meeting them at the beginning. The first conversation always happens with Noora, I would say. And then, for example, our lead architect, Afnan, would handle a lot of the design aspect in terms of delivering a project. So it's even though we have our own clients that we are managing, but we have specific tasks within ourselves that we distribute.
Right.
Yeah.
We also put personal goals. Like sometimes every single person is strong in something and at the same time weak in another aspect. So let's say I would be really strong in renders, but weak in like the drafting, the details. And my personal goal is this year is to start practicing these so that if we are short in them, I can take over. It's not just my thing that I'm strong in and that's it.
Right.
So these things, we try to challenge each other and try to better ourselves so we can complete each other as well as support each other. So if the load is in the rendering, it's not just me. Fatima learned how to render, now it's Noora's turn. Or if the load, sometimes with the project, the stage is at the details and we have to do the detailed drawings and we can't only rely on the freelancers, let's say, to do details or our team or draftsmen. We have to take it on. And this is something we like aspire to do. So I have to learn these things that I'm weak on to support in that time that we need.
Right. No, but I think maybe again for kind of, founders, entrepreneurs in general in the design field, I think there's a lot of pressure initially because you don't know so much apart from design. Something as simple as client management is, people can do a degree on that basically. But I think the key thing is to educate yourself enough to be able to know the language between whoever you're trying to meet. For example, I think the pottery example you gave before was perfect because you took a bunch of classes, you know enough about pottery to be able to, discuss the subject, but you wouldn't be, and you probably shouldn't be as good as someone who's an actual specialist, who's an actual pottery person, for example. So I think the same kind of thinking carries into your accounts and your finances and all of that you know enough to speak the language that you can understand what they're saying, but you don't necessarily have to become the best at it, which I think makes perfect sense. And again, leaves the fun part of design to us, as is the case. Kind of, again, shifting gears a bit, there's a lot of projects now which are being refurbished, which are kind of undergoing this renaissance of, contemporary work that's happening. And not just here in the city of Dubai, but kind of all over. You see, Sharjah with Shuruk and, in Abu Dhabi, it's kind of, taking over. So as a firm that's done a bunch of refurbishment work, what are the kind of challenges that you face there in that business model as compared to something which is, say, maybe just shell and core or brand new? Again, feel free, whoever.
I think it's client expectations. They've been, let's say you've been living in a house for about 10 years. You can't really imagine it's being something else.
Right.
So they can just imagine like maybe other types of furniture or paint or whatever. But when we come in the picture, we see all the potential there is. But the thing is, that's one challenge, which is the client expectations and how they can view their house in a different way. But the other challenge is cost. People think that renovations are cheaper than a new project, but you have the cost of demolishing, the cost of breaking things down and then putting things back up, and all the surprises you get from that process.
Demolishing correctly, I think, is the right term.
Exactly.
Because people think that, we'll just break down a wall and that's it.
Yeah, but the wall is connected to the ceiling, to the flooring, to the skirting, to the electrical, to the...
So doing it correctly.
Not just that, like you're paying for breaking something and building it up again. So it's not, because people avoid building something new and they're like, I'll just fix it. But it's double cost. You need to be aware of it.
Right. So sorry, Afnan, I kind of stepped on your toes there.
That's fine.
But yes, you were saying?
But for me, I think we owe this renovation time that everyone wants. We owe it honestly to COVID because people stayed in their house and they realized that we want to have a good time in the house and live, like we can't travel. So why not just fix our house and be okay with it? I think that's an advantage, if you will, to the global pandemic.
Absolutely.
But for me, I really love renovations. I love before and after. Any shows with anything before and after, whether it's beauty or cooking or whatever you can do with the before and after is always exciting. And for us, I think it's when you renovate, the best thing you could do is bring designers in because it's fresh to our eyes and we can do so many things. We can even renovate. Let's say your kitchen is on this side of the house and your living room is on the other side and the flow of it doesn't really work. We fix that flow and we see the potential in it. And it's just always exciting to do.
And I feel like we get a lot of clients who who called in contractors before and tell them they can do this and that. So we come in and we're like, yes, we can do it all. Sure.
Absolutely.
But that's nice.
Just give us money.
I think the other interesting challenge of renovation is the surprises on site.
Yes.
It's a very exciting project to be on site. It's not something like new where you can draw whatever you want. You go on site and there's like, oh, there's a column here that we didn't know existed.
Yep.
Because the drawings that were given to us didn't really have that. Because
Right.
during construction, something happened.
Really as built.
And like just like the exciting part of discovering these things and solving them on site is what excites us about renovation, and how to come up with solution on site is very interesting.
Right.
And our studio is the type that we design and we actually follow up on site. We don't have the separation of someone who's doing the design in the office, but then hands over to the construction team,
Right.
and then the engineer who did not know anything that happened in the design. It's a flow that we actually very proud of, that we are on the site, we design, and we go to the site and supervise ourselves, which a lot of contractors are surprised by. And they ask us, oh, but you're the owners and you're the founders and designers and also you come and supervise. I'm like, yes, like that's the first time. We've never like seen anyone. I'm like, yes, we are.
Right.
Actually, a secret to going on site a lot is not just to supervise. It's also because we're really excited to see the updates and all our work coming to life. So
Yeah,
that is exciting.
that's a big difference between say like a site supervisor and a designer. A site supervisor will have like a checklist and say, all right, everything's done. Quality is good, approved. But the designer goes there because the designer is genuinely excited to see it happen.
You want to be there.
Yeah.
And it's not just that. You remember when I told you like detailing happens on site? We really feel like most of the design actually happens on site. Like the surprise columns. What if we detail this now? Because it looks different on site no matter how much you design on paper. It's like sometimes we add details when we're there as well.
Right.
Yeah, contractors don't like that. Like, can you pull a wire here because we want to add lights? Or can you pull something there because we want to add a hidden detail or something?
Yeah, I can see them just going, oh,
the problem is,
fine.
as graduates, some of them are like, no, you can't. Like, this is the first thing they say, no, you can't do it. It's not possible.
It can't be done.
Yeah, it can't be done. Wire from here? No, we cannot. So it took us years to know they can. So now we're just like, just do it. Drop it here, do the shadow line. Yes, bye.
Yes, exactly. No, again, few very interesting things that all of you touched upon. So I'll kind of quickly go through them. So the first thing is that, yes, as graduate architects, it's very difficult to kind of have your kind of commanding voice in front of a contractor just because they know better. But like you said, once you know better, you kind of just say, yes, do it and be done with it. But what's more interesting, in my opinion, which I maybe want to get your opinion on again, is as female Emirati engineers who are, like you said, founders and designers, when you go on site, how do contractors react? Genuinely, how do they react? And is that changing? Do you see it changing from project to project, or is it still the same?
I think the challenge when we first started, it was our confidence level, kind of being in a male dominant practice or profession that had that challenge for us to prove ourselves, to establish ourselves, and for them to actually listen to us. But as we experienced different projects and worked with different people, we grew that voice of confidence, I would say, and we are able to command and being able to communicate with the contractors without being dismissed as females or as Emiratis. So it's something that we kind of learned how to deal with, how to communicate with them and make sure that we are strong and confident enough not to be intimidated by this male dominant field. But honestly, because we live in a country where females, Emiratis are empowered, it's not much of a challenge that you find it extremely hard to overcome. There are so many females in the field. Designers are right now in the design field. I don't need to mention names, but it's something that you just learn how to be confident enough in the field to be able to command yourself and be able to work with people. So that's the challenge, I would say.
I think maybe like in the first meeting, they aren't as like, maybe they tiptoe around us or they're not really like sure of our experience. But once we talk and they see our drawings and they see our work, they are more like
comfortable and like
responsive to us.
Yeah.
responsive, I would say.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Okay.
I think first impressions always.
I think it's good. We're like a wolf in disguise. They think we're the sheep. And then,
But I think, as
Ta-da.
Fatima said, we try not to think about it. We just go into the meeting just to finish the work and do it. So if we try to always think that, okay, I'm a female, I'm less, like I don't have that much. It's not something we like to think about. It's just, let's just do the work. So when we come with that mindset and that confidence, people really read that well.
Right.
If we're unsure and we tiptoe and we're like, we don't put our foot down and like discuss things that we know are possible, then that affects the design.
But that's really good to hear, I must say, because you always have preconceived notions about how things are on site, but it's good to hear from you guys that, you know, that's the kind of stance that everyone's taking. That's really good. As we sort of wind down the episode, I'm kind of thinking of, in your opinion, what is the future of Studio D04? What do you guys want to be doing? Normally, I would say 5 years from now, but we all know, given the current world climate, no one thinks 5 years now.
I think in our field, 5 years is nothing. It's like one house.
Yeah.
So what's the future of Studio D04? What do you guys want to be doing more or different or faster or quicker? I don't know. But what's the plan?
I think we want to stick with the same vision and the same belief, but we don't want to branch out too much because we like to work on details and we like to be there on site and we like to be involved in design. So it's not like we're going to take a commercial route and go like we want to build like a whole development and like the biggest mall or something. We want to do really nice niche residential designs with clients that believe in design aesthetics and believe in detailing design and like have the same, I would say, vision as us.
Right.
Even nice like commercial projects, interior project that inspires to be award-winning interiors and so on, like something that is different, I would say, instead of the same like cookie cutter coffee shops that show up, for example. We want to make sure that each project that we work on, we learn something new, we explore something new. It's a different experience. So that's our main goal of expanding, I would say. We want more projects that we think can deliver our design aesthetics. I mean, it would be interesting to have a project that's like bigger than a house, like maybe a research center, for example, or
like a niche hotel.
Like a boutique hotel.
Yep.
Maybe these nice residential developments that we can develop, like communities that are not huge, but like small and have really interesting design that kind of target a specific market or a specific client.
Right.
I think it's not just being bigger and bigger and bigger. It's about design and design and design. Developing this, not developing just the studio and it being like this big, huge office that does everything. And then the design detail is lost there. It's really about like building the team that has this vision of doing these types of projects.
Right. Interesting. I think that's a good reality check for a lot of designers in the field kind of wanting to start their own practices, that I think you guys have been true to your vision ever since you've started. And I think that's very clear in the work. That's what I keep telling everyone. I'm like, you can have as much mission vision as you want, but at the end of the day, your built work will kind of speak for itself. And if your built work isn't, what you're saying doesn't match your built work, then people can tell very quickly and very easily.
Like we want to be the reference images for projects. Like when you go on Pinterest and you build a board, our projects are in those boards.
Right.
That would be amazing.
I'm pretty sure it probably does. I'm pretty sure it's already there because, again, I feel that a lot of good contemporary designers, especially here in Dubai, are relatively limited. In the sense that there are a lot of people who do contemporary design, but the really good ones who do it correctly are quite limited. Mm-hmm. So I kind of feel like we all know each other in some way or the other. And therefore, I'm sure that you're definitely there in someone's mood board somewhere.
That's a good start. Yeah.
Another thing is like as a small business, I think in the field, like for architecture and interior design, it takes a long time to grow. Like not just build. It's about building relations, building like a name for yourself with your work. Like as you said, the work represents us. So it's not about fast growing for sure. So we always compare. Okay, like we look up to some certain companies, but we make sure to see like how many years they've been running. And that's why they're there. Right. And we don't need to rush our time to reach there.
Right.
It will take time to build your portfolio with the quality we want.
Exactly.
To reach that point.
Especially looking like at super architects. They're like in their 70s when they become famous. So just that's what we want. We don't want to be someone who's just like get to become famous just like really fast. We want to build our reputation and our design aesthetic.
And actually have a reason for being famous.
Yeah. It's like, especially we're like, I think here it's always number one and the biggest. We try to be the best, like in quality wise. It's not just about, we don't want to burn out.
And represent ourselves and the design aesthetic that we actually envision. We don't want to sacrifice that. Something very important to us that we built, and it took us, I mean, I know we've been running since 2014, and it's a slow progress, but it's a very huge learning curve for us, that now you start to see our projects coming to life.
Yeah, at first, if you can notice it in our Instagram account that the first few posts or like the big chunk of posts were just renders at the beginning
and exhibitions.
But now it's our built projects, the renovations, the interiors, the architecture. So this is to us is very exciting that now we can actually show the work, and it's not just in paper that people can't trust.
Yeah, because it takes like a leap of faith from clients that not a lot of them are willing to take.
Yeah. Especially if you don't have a lot of build stuff to begin with. Yeah. Because they kind of, I mean, rightly so, they can't tell if you can deliver what you're kind of designing, which
and it's a lot of like marketing yourself that designers aren't good at. We're not that good. We don't know, like we're always like, it's hard to sell yourself like an image or a picture, and like that's why we like to show our work, within the work speak for us.
Right. Yeah. Now there's a very weird illusion that designers normally have, that is, if my work's good, clients will find me and I don't have to do anything else. That's normally what designers think, but it is so divorced from what the truth actually is.
Yeah, your work can be amazing, but then people don't want to work with you.
And then it's the opposite. Some people market themselves on nothing. Like it's a talent. I swear, I like really wish I had it, but we try to push and learn even like these things. It's not just like you were talking about expanding our like technical stuff, but like expanding on these items are really important for growing the business. Right. Like the more you're out there, the more people you want will find you.
Yeah, the right
you need
people.
To speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, but
it's not just work in the office. It's work outside.
Networking.
Like especially if you're not a people person. I like to sit behind the screen, but you have to go out there and meet people and talk to them. The scene requires you to, especially here, that you have to network and you have to talk and you have to represent yourself and market yourself. The work to talk about, like the work itself that represents you, is not enough in our field. You have to go out there and represent yourself.
And some people are intimidated. If we just put the clean things, like we try to have the story that we have in our Instagram, we want it to be relatable, not just like the very professional, clean, like overwhelming. Like it feels like we want people to feel like that it's okay to text us, to reach out to us, not just like, oh, I'm not in that level, so I can't reach out. Right.
And you may come off as a bit too professional as well, because you might scare away clients who want to work with you. We learned
that the hard way. Like with designers, we like everything to be clean and like...
Yeah. It's formatted, high resolution, 150 TPI, all that stuff. Exactly.
Even when we talk, like some the wordings that we use, not everyone understands. We had a realization with a client when we talked. Their face was just like blank. Yeah. Like, I don't think they understood a thing we said.
There's a lot of architecture jargon that goes into meetings that we stripped out, Rel. Like simple words. How you explain to your grandmother is how you deliver your project.
I again had to learn that the hard way, because I used to use a lot of, facades and fenestrations and elevations and sections. And then now I describe sections like, I'm like, if you think of a cake, right? Like a 3-tier cake, and you slice that cake in between, you see what's on the inside. That's exactly what we're doing in this drawing. And
we even tell clients some of these drawings, like you don't have to understand these drawings. It's just for the joinery team.
Right.
You just need to understand the renders, the 3D. You have to know that this is what it's going to look like and trust us in delivering it.
Right.
They don't have to go through every single drawing.
Right.
I just want to add, like, we make sure even when we are doing any project that there is a VR experience, a virtual tour of the space, because we know clients don't understand plans no matter how you explain to them.
Absolutely.
So we make sure that there is like a whole tour of the house, that they know what they're getting, so they don't get any surprises on site.
Right.
So from the moment that we sit with them, we do the layout and try to explain to them. But then when you have that virtual tour, and then you give them like these VR views of the house, and they can look and walk around the house, it's a completely different experience to them, that they actually understand, oh, this is what you meant by a cantilever or a shading structure or an entrance with different levels. So how to communicate to the client is something that we learned to
keep
deliver.
evolving.
Learning, yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Really cool, man. Like, I feel like we can keep talking forever because clearly we're all passionate designers, no doubt. But as a sort of final question to this episode, feel free to take your time to answer this. There's no rush. We call this the dinner question. So the dinner question, it's all in good fun. Don't stress too much about it.
Okay.
The question is, as architects, interior designers in general, if you could have dinner with one architect, interior designer, whoever it may be, dead or alive, doesn't matter, who would it be and why?
Pure Zumthar. Sorry.
Okay. That was pretty quick, but okay. But why?
Because he used to spend 10 years on one project, and the amount of detailing that go in his projects are I'm speechless. When you just study one project, it's beyond words. I don't know what to say. I think it's different for each one of them.
I think to me, I mean, it's not very out there, but for me, it's Zaha Hadid, because I want her presence, I want to learn how she did that. For an Arab female architect, she has this huge presence and respect, and no one can tell me I can't do anything. I'll do this the way I want to do it, and that's full stop. To me, the power in that is amazing, and I want to learn that.
Awesome.
Not apologize for designing, apologize for the timing and why it's taking so long. No, it is the way it is, and you need to respect that.
Absolutely. Okay. And last one?
I don't know. I would say people like Carlos Scarpa and maybe Le Corbusier. I don't know, people who actually started movements in architecture.
Le Corbusier.
Yeah.
Yes.
Frank Lloyd Wright, I would be interested. Frank Lloyd Wright didn't just design a space, but every single detail in that space in a time and a century where those materials were very hard to manipulate and play around with. So I would be interested in talking to those kind of architects who started movements in the modern architecture.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Very diverse answers, I must say. But again, that just goes to show that clearly this diversity is what is the strength of, kind of Studio D04, that very diverse answers for very different reasons. But when they all kind of come together, I think it's pretty cool. As a fan, I must say, I'm really excited to see what you guys do in the future. And on behalf of the entire show, we want to thank you for giving us your time. And this will definitely not be the last conversation we have. We'll definitely have you guys on again. And yeah, as kind of, just good housekeeping rules, if people want to get in touch with you, want to check out your work, maybe want to, learn maybe something from you guys, what's the best way for them to sort of get in touch?
Instagram, I'd say.
All right. Okay. So we'll have that tag in our show notes somewhere. And if you guys want to get in touch, I highly recommend you do. Definitely check out their work as well, because if you're a good designer, you'll know why I'm telling you so many times to check out their work, because it's really that good. And on that note, thank you guys once again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us and your kind words.
No problem. And for the rest of you guys, we will catch you next week. Fellow A-formers, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for being part of our journey, and thank you for the immense support we've been receiving for our episodes. It has and continues to be a very bumpy road, but we wouldn't want it any other way. If you enjoyed this episode and it brought you value, please share this episode with anyone who may benefit from it. But of course, if you loved the episode, follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn, send us a little DM, and we may just send you a secret link to a secret episode which we've been working on. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. See you next time. Keep sketching.